So welcome to peptide therapy. Does everybody know what peptides are?
No.
You do. Well, because you don't think you know what peptides are, but certain hormones are peptides. Like for a thyroid hormone, it's a peptide. It's something that's in your body that goes somewhere and does a specific job. It is something that does a specific job. Most of you have heard of human growth hormone. Has anybody not heard of human? So what do you know about human growth hormone?
Not much. It makes you feel good.
It makes you feel good. It does. What one thing does it do?
Stimulates collagen.
It stimulates collagen. Because it doesn't do one thing.
Doesn't it help with the metabolism?
Metabolism, muscles. It helps you feel good. So it's something that does a lot of things. If I give you growth hormone, your hair might grow, your skin might get better, your eyesight might get better, your pain might get better. But you might want your weight to get better, but her weight got better. You know, I can't pick what it's going to do. It can just do a number of things. It has several. It's in your body and it runs around and turns everything on. When you're 20, it's everywhere, doing everything. And then you get older and you have half this much. It's doing half of everything. I don't know which half, but half. And then you get even older and it does 10% of everything. So if I replace growth hormone in your body now, what would it do?
Amplify.
Several things, but I don't know which thing. But growth hormone is a peptide. But what happened was, so it's a very long, so once upon a time we could prescribe growth hormone and just give you growth hormone. Then the bodybuilders got it and started playing with it and it became very heavily regulated. So now it's very difficult to give people growth hormone. So now we can give people growth hormone releasers. I can prompt your body to create it itself. But still, what is it going to do? I mean, it's great if you have 20 issues and you want me to do 20 different things. It's great to take growth hormone because 10 of those things might come back.
Right.
That's great, but I can't predict it.
Right.
So we're going to go through the precursors because they're very useful. Some people have a lot of different things, but we're also going to go through the very specific research molecules that they created. They're like, I can give you this whole book, or I can rip out a page and hand you the page from the book that I want you to deal with.
Okay.
And that's some of the specific peptides. I ripped off the page and handed you that peptide. So the old and the new. So like I said, it's cutting edge. Insulin in your body is a peptide because it's kind of like a growth hormone, but it's very specific to your pancreas. Thyroid's a peptide, but it's very specific to your thyroid, so it's a specific peptide. But we have other ones that we can deal with. There are 7,000 peptides in your body,
Oh, wow.
but only 20 can I prescribe. I can biohack 20 of them, but you have thousands. Your body's doing all sorts of things that we've not even characterized yet.
Wow.
So hormones versus peptides. So like I said, I can prescribe a hormone to you, estrogen or testosterone, and it does, each one of them do 300 jobs, but I can't tell it which job to do. It'll do lots of jobs. It might do 150, but you might have a specific need that requires a specific peptide. So here are some of the things that peptide therapy can do. Anti-aging. There are some that just protect your DNA. It can be for brains. So I can give you a nasal spray that'll specifically, the peptide that goes to your brain and says, sleep, fix yourself, do something. I can give you that peptide. Pain, there are some that are very anti-inflammatory that can just directly do your pain. Even though growth hormone can help you with pain, a regular hormone can help you with pain, but sometimes you're like, no, fix that first. And then I can give you a peptide for that.
Can the one for the brain, or have we remember? Like, okay.
Sometimes I'll go through a few different ones for the brain, but some are very specific for sleep, some are more specific for brain and mood, some are more specific for brain injury. Then there's weight loss. So sometimes you want growth hormone to help you with your weight. Like when you were young and had tons of growth hormone, how many french fries could you eat? That's what I was telling people, like, what do I do to lose weight? And I'm like, first I make you younger because you didn't ask that question when you were 20.
Yeah.
You didn't just eat stuff. You stayed the same size.
Yeah.
And that's a loss of hormones that burn fat. Once upon a time you had lots of pathways to burn fat, so it didn't matter what you did, and now it matters what you do. Diabetes, remember that peptide was insulin, there's other ones that act like that. There are peptides specific for your immune function. Your immune system is full of hormones. Lots of vitamins direct how you're going to deal with things, and there's lots of, vitamins and hormones, everything that does that. So there's peptides for that and more. So the job of peptide treatment is to restore something that was lost. They're pretty safe because they mimic something that was in your body. It doesn't really overdo it. It just goes in your body and says, I remember what I used to do, and then it does it. So first we'll talk about growth hormone releasers. What if somebody has a lot of different issues and I want to deal with a whole lot of things at once? Because that's a lot of different people that come in with a list of 10 or 20 things, and I'm like, let's just do general growth hormone boosting. So there's 4 easy ways to get that done. One is a capsule, ibutamoren. The second one is an older peptide that can be injected and also sublingual. It's called Comeaux. The issue with these two is that it will tell all your other hormones to come out. What if the other hormones that come out are cortisol and insulin? Do I want them out? Sometimes, if I'm a diabetic and I don't have insulin, maybe, but I almost never want cortisol. So then they came out with these other releasers called CJC 1295 and ipamorelin. And they knew that the problem with these first two is like, well, this one's great because it's a capsule. This one's great. It's been around a long time. It's pretty affordable. But they tweaked these two because they're less likely to provoke insulin and cortisol. So you don't want a growth hormone to come along, burn fat, but make you hungry.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. So they kind of refined, so these are more expensive, refined growth hormone peptides. So how growth hormone works, your brain sends out a signal to your pituitary gland, and that gland releases a lot of hormones, and then the hormones go do the work. So instead of giving you estrogen, progesterone, DHEA, testosterone, pregnenolone, I give you growth hormone, they all come out. But not the insulin and the cortisol, depending on which one I give. Okay? So I can, pick it. I prescribe Comeaux the most because it's the most affordable, knowing that it can call out those other 2 hormones, because usually we have a remedy for high cortisol. So I do the more we talk briefly about that. Comeaux, CJC, minimal effect on cortisol and prolactin. So a lot of times the 2 nice ones that don't provoke the cortisol and the insulin, we mix them together because they have different half-lives, and if you put them together, you get a longer, bigger effect. They're not often prescribed separately anymore. They're usually combined. If you see them, you'll always see them combined, even though they're available separately. But it doesn't stimulate appetite or cortisol. That's just a useful detail. All right. So then there are people that might come in who are prone to getting cancer. Maybe they know they have a cancer gene. Maybe their entire family has cancer, and they come in and say, well, I want growth hormone, but protect me from getting what everybody else in my family has. Is there a peptide for that? There is a peptide for that called Peptide. At the end of your chromosomes, you have little caps that protect them. When you're young, these are really good caps. Then you get older and they're free. They're just not that good because you don't have all the hormones that protect the DNA. So the caps kind of wear out, and then your cells die faster. Epithelium goes and protects those caps. They give it, so it helps prevent disease and it increases lifespan. They've given it to people, they've given it to animals, and they live 25% longer and get less disease because their DNA doesn't change and morph into weird cells. So this one, you won't meet a lot of people who've been on it because it hasn't been around for very long. It was around for a minute, then it went away, now it's back. So it's one of those things that's kind of difficult to get your hands on, but it's available now. I found a new source, and that's what people do. So if somebody specifically, I want to live longer and I want my DNA to stop going bad, that's the one I want.
How long is the research on that?
Huh?
How long is the research on that? Like it started and then they stopped and now it's
It wasn't the
back
research,
again?
it was an availability thing. So they've been researching it for years because, I mean, if they've
I
proven
don't
that
think
they.
everybody would want it. It would be like.
Everybody does want it, it's an availability thing. So in Russia, you can run around and get it, maybe in
Uh-huh.
Canada, you can get it. In this country, we only have probably 12 peptides that we can get just because it's not an FDA approved drug, so you have to find a pharmacy that will carry a not FDA approved drug that knows how to store a not FDA approved drug, then it's expensive, so you gotta find people who want to buy this not FDA approved drug. So it's not really the problem with the hormone or the research, we know what it does, but it's the affordability and the availability that's been the problem. It went away because of the availability. You gotta find a pharmacist who would work with it.
Why isn't it approved?
It takes millions of dollars and many years to do it. It might be in years. Plus, if I'm gonna study human aging, I mean, I can study a fruit fly that lived for 75 days. I can tell you that it lived for an extra, 20 years.
20 days.
But a person, how long would that research take?
Yeah. So it's a new.
We'd all be
it's
dead.
something new.
It's something
not-
it's nearly impossible to study in people because before the FDA lets us give it to people, we've got to study it on people, and people live too long. So in other countries, they don't kind of have the same
Rigid.
obstacles. So that's why. Most of what I'm talking about is things that are researched. Most of this came out of Croatia and Russia, and it's something that they use there. But they don't have a lot of people with the money where everybody has used it. Well, we can get it here, but it's still not a molecule where you can go to Walgreens and CVS and say, give it to me. It's something that a compound pharmacist has to work with. So you have to find a pharmacist willing to have people inspecting them all the time when they're carrying this. It's a whole different thing. So, but just know that there is one that's specifically for that purpose. So then some people are like, I just want to lose weight right now. I don't burn fat, I eat something, I see cellulite right 10 seconds later, and I'll do something about that. So there is a specific sequence in growth hormone called anti-obesity drug 9604. She was talking about numbers, some of them are still called their research molecule number. This is the research molecule number. But it's specifically one that is known to promote muscle growth and burn fat. That is its job. It was its job in your body, and they sequenced it, and that's what they will give you. It also helps joints and bones and cartilage grow back, but it's more specific to burning fat, building muscle. So there's definitely one for that. It doesn't affect your blood sugar. So, like how growth hormone can burn fat, but then give you some cortisol and some insulin and throw you in a spin. This one doesn't do that. It just wants to burn your fat. It doesn't want to give you a backlash.
And does that come in pill form or?
Most of them are for sure in injection forms. There are a couple of pharmacists that can take that powder and make it sublingual. So most of them are going to be either nasal sprays, injection, or sublingual. So I have worked with this. No, I've definitely seen it in a cream also. So this one is pretty easy to work with, and different pharmacies have it in different ways. I know one pharmacy has it in injection form, and one does sublingual. Because you need a sterile compounding pharmacy to get an injection, and so that's why all pharmacists don't work with it, because they all don't have a sterile hood where they can make liquids and injections. Injections have a whole different protocol and oversight than a pill. So it's harder to get in a pill, and it's harder to find someone who will make it, but there is someone who makes this in a sublingual.
I know it came late, but I'm sorry. What are the side effects of it?
Of this one, most of the hormones don't have, this one in particular, it burns fat or it doesn't. The side effect is you spend money and maybe you don't get that skinny fast. Because they're natural molecules that were in your body, so it's sort of like saying, I'm 20 years old and I have plenty of estrogen, what's the side effect mean?
I mean, it's like some people experience like muscle spasms.
Not with growth peptide. Because your body thinks it's them, and if you're replacing something that was missing from your body, it's just like, oh, what's missing came back, but you really don't usually feel poorly about that. So the incidence of side effects is very low when we're doing peptide therapy, because they're literally something that went missing, and now you feel terrible because it was missing, and I replaced it, and now you're like, oh, thank you.
So it's bioidentical, it's like just
identical. Even though they synthesize them in a lab, they're literally identical to your body. So the side effect is pretty typical of side effects. They usually either work a lot, work a little, either work a lot or work a little, but most people work the side effect. Except for the hunger with the, well, we were talking about growth hormone and how it can make people like.
Okay.
Because this is bioidentical to what we already make in our body, and it's not really synthetic.
Right.
There's not really a side effect.
You know how,
So as we go along, because we're gonna try to get through most of these and then we'll ask questions. But if there is a side effect, I will indicate it in the slide. Most of them don't have a negative side effect. We already went through growth hormone and how it makes everything turn back on, but the side effect is it also turns on insulin and cortisol, and the side effect would be insulin and cortisol, you get hungry. So we went through that side effect, but that's not even a side effect, that's a normal thing that was already happening that we brought back, that we didn't want. So there's not really a side effect, there's an effect of the hormone, but the hormone always is. Sometimes we can try to work around something we didn't want to happen. Like I gave you estrogen, you feel great, your boobs don't hurt. You know, sort of like, not a side effect, when you had your cycle, your boobs hurt. You know, sort of like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
So yeah, so there's not really a side effect, but sometimes I will warn people, like, here's what you're gonna feel when we might wanna change the dosing. But this particular one, most people just want more dosing to get the effect. This anti-obesity drug doesn't really have a side effect. Like, no one's gonna get too skinny or disappear. The side effect would be you disappear completely.
So how does it, but does it,
What you want?
how does it work though? Does it, you start losing weight, or does it keep you from eating more?
No, so, you know how when you were young and you ate something and then you burned it?
So it's metabolism.
Right. So now you eat something, you don't burn it. But I give you AOD 9604 and now you burn it. So it's not like you disappear and all the fat in your body goes away. I've just handed you a metabolism back and now you can actually act appropriately. So it's not like the best weight loss drug on the market and 30 pounds in 30 days.
Yeah.
No. But it is like, I know that when I was younger I could eat what I wanted and now I cannot, and I would like that back.
Okay.
It is that.
So it doesn't get rid of it, it just helps you in the future then.
It helps you in the future. And over time, you will burn extra fat off. It's not like a quick run through your body and all the fat melts off.
Okay.
That'd be great. You know, do you know how skinny I would be if that actually did that? Just look, I am not that skinny. Okay, so then there are a lot of people who come to me who want sleep. And I don't start with peptides when people want to sleep because there's a lot of great things to help you sleep. There are a lot of great hormones that help you sleep. There's herbs, there's essential oils. But some people don't respond to that or have been on prescription drugs to help them sleep and their brain architecture is different. So now we are a whole different sleep person. You know, so sometimes I need to actually fix your brain because it will not ever sleep. And that is Delta Sleep Inducing Peptide. Welcome. Please meet Delta Sleep Inducing Peptide. Which used to be an injection, so nobody wants to give themselves a shot and go to sleep, but you know, they did. But now it's also available in sublingual form. And the great thing about this, a lot of sleep things, when you take them, you need them forever. Like, hi, I need melatonin, and I'm always gonna take it. Especially when you're older, you're over 50 or 60, and you know, your body just isn't ready to sleep anymore, it's done. So you always have to take magnesium, melatonin, Ambien, whatever you're taking. But this is something that could actually correct your architecture and make the other things work. You might not need this peptide forever. You might not, but I've had people who've taken it for a period of time and now the other stuff works. They can go back to inexpensive melatonin, inexpensive magnesium. So most of the peptides I discussed are ongoing. But this one is one of the ones that could restore and stop your heart. So it helps with disturbed sleeping patterns, decreases cortisol, because a lot of people don't sleep because they have so much cortisol exciting them all the time. So this helps with that part of it. And reduction of chronic pain. If your cortisol is high all the time, you might be inflamed. It helps with that. So I like that particular peptide. Kisspeptin, named after the town it was discovered in, where Hershey Kisses are. Hershey, Pennsylvania. The researchers in Hershey, Pennsylvania found this. And it is a peptide that stimulates follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. So it's good for fertility, and it's good for testosterone. Well, boost all your hormones, but specifically testosterone. There are some people who want to boost their testosterone level, but don't want to take testosterone. There are some men, maybe they're young, fertile men, but need to boost their testosterone. I give them testosterone, it impairs their fertility. They don't want that. So kisspeptin is something I might recommend for them. Maybe kisspeptin is also something they've done a lot of cancer research on, so they know it's got a beneficial cancer profile. So maybe I have a patient who's afraid to take hormones because they've had cancer or they've heard bad things about hormones, and maybe this will be better for them because it will boost the hormones like we want, but it won't give them an unfavorable cancer risk. Which is great because it'll fix 10 things. But I might just want that hormone feature of what growth hormone does. Because growth hormone will boost your testosterone also, but I might just want your hormones and not want to be messing with a bunch of other stuff. So I might use this direct thing. Oh, this one's fun. Because this one is an FDA approved drug. I mean, it's a research molecule, then it actually did go through the FDA approval process. Does anybody know what it could be? It's for women. It's for female sex drive.
I was just gonna say libido.
It's called Vyleesi. Most people don't even know we have 2 drugs for female sex drive, but we do have 2 FDA-approved drugs for female sex drive that nobody's heard of. We all know Viagra, but we do not know this. So I'll tell you the story behind this one. So melatonin, most of us have heard of, helps us sleep. But it also has something to do with pigment in our body. Like if I give somebody enough melatonin, they'll create hair pigment, skin pigment. So melatonin has been manipulated to turn it into a tanning drug called melatonin. So they're playing with this drug. They're like, ooh, let's make an FDA-approved tanning drug. Okay? So they're playing with melatonin. We make melatonin 1 and melatonin 2. They were just playing with it. And they were like, these people are getting horny. What's up? It worked on men and women. So even if you read the package insert for Vyleesi, they'll say something about, oh, only take this much because otherwise you might notice some skin darkening. Because they were playing with melatonin, they made melatonin, and then it had a sexual side effect, and it became a drug for that.
Because you're tan too.
It's a libido drug. So that's the fun thing. I always thought that was kind of funny. Like, how did they figure that out? But yeah, so this was actually FDA approved. It's been studied. There's been 30 clinical trials. So it's one of the few peptides that made it because, sex drive is big business and it's easier, aging is very hard to study and all these other things are hard to study, but sex drive is not that hard. So we come up with this drug. So it's FDA approved for women as a drug, but it can also, as an injection, but it can be off-labeled as a sublingual tablet for females and males for sex drive. And with most of the sex drive drugs, you need like stimulation, like Viagra. If I just pop one now, or a man just pops one now, it doesn't just work. He actually needs fun. But this drug just works. So beware. Like it works out with no stimulation. It makes you go find people. So it's it specifically says that. It's like some are like, or people who fail other drugs like Viagra, if somebody's already failed it, this would still work. So it has a whole different mechanism than Viagra. Just
Is it something that you take daily or?
no. Vyleesi says you can only take, I think, 8 of them a month. 8 injections a month.
Oh, so that's injection.
Well, it's FDA approved as an injection. If someone compounds it for you, it's usually a sublingual tablet or a nasal spray. I've seen it both ways. So depending on the company and what they've decided to do. So off-label, it's not an injection, but if somebody sent you to Walgreens, it's an injection. All right. Thymosin alpha. This is my best friend during COVID because at one point you could get your hands on this. So, has anyone heard of your thymus gland? By the time we're 20, it kind of disappears and you can't even see it anymore. But it produced a lot of different things for your immune system. And as you get older, your immune system gets worse. This is the hormone that comes out of that gland in an injection that you can just shoot yourself with and have a whole thymus gland. Yeah. So it stimulates the adaptive immune response, which is essential for fighting viral, bacterial, and fungal infections and cancers.
So is that in the vaccine?
It's not in a vaccine, it's in an injection that you can inject yourself with.
I know, but
It's not in a
why
vaccine.
wouldn't we use this as a vaccine if it does all these wonderful things?
I do not know. Like I said, it's,
Yeah.
so it restores, so they use people with like chronic fatigue, autoimmune diseases, Lyme diseases, like those are the types of people I would use. It's good, it's a new research molecule. One day it might replace vaccines, but it's a pretty new research molecule. So it is not an FDA approved drug, it is a thing that we can get our hands on that helps your immune system. So yeah, this is something, like I said, one of the pharmacies was like running out of this and they were like, who wants it? And I have tons of it in my refrigerator.
So, good for you.
No, it's wrong, but it's just,
So you prescribe it to someone and then they inject it themselves, or do you inject it in them?
they injected themselves. I wanna say that somebody
You
makes,
train them, or
huh?
you train them to do that?
No, it's a little insulin needle. The pharmacist just shows you how to do it. But yeah, it's good for somebody like, let's say I had somebody who was recovering from a viral illness, or like just a Lyme disease. There's a lot of people who like don't ever fully recover from an insult. Mold, Lyme, lots of different things, and so I might use it on somebody who's like having a difficult time recovering.
I'm just curious because I hate needles and I can't imagine giving myself a shot. Is it one that it's like you put it to your skin and just press? Is it something like that? Or
it
it's
would
a
be, they
regular
would hand you a
injection
needle.
with the-
It would be a
okay.
regular insulin. It'll be an insulin needle,
Okay.
but it won't be.
I'm sure my husband would be happy to do that.
Oh yeah,
But it's like.
make him mad.
I've given injections to my dog that needed shots twice a day, and it was like really hard for me to do it.
Yeah,
So-
but that, most of these they all started as injections, and some of them, there's pharmacists that have found a way to stabilize them enough to make them into nasal sprays or
Yeah,
other
or
things,
something,
but some
yeah.
of them have stayed as injections. So BPC 157 is one of those injections. It's a peptide that's referred to as the Wolverine supplement because it heals everything it touches. Everything. Like you can see it. Like if you open the capsule and put it in your mouth on your bleeding gums, they will stop.
Wow.
Somebody has a knee pain and they used to, like, well, I don't inject their knees, but the people who do inject their knees, the knee will heal. It's a rapid healing molecule. Your body used to make it. So you know how when you were young and you eat all kinds of junk and your stomach didn't hurt? You still ate gluten, you still ate milk, but you had this living in your stomach that just came out and fixed as fast as you could wreck it. But then you got older and you stopped making it.
So if you like suffer with IBS or something,
That's exactly what I use it for. Leaky
Wow.
gut. You don't have to have IBS. If you have any gut problem at all, from your bleeding gums all the way down to your hemorrhoids, all that's the gut. From your gums to your hemorrhoids, that's all gut.
wow,
Your
That's
esophagus,
Right.
come to give you one.
brain gut
You
connection.
can have an ulcer, you can have any, and even your brain. So it's not a brain molecule, but if I heal your gut, your brain just got better. So yeah, this is one of my favorite things. Joint health, muscles, tendons, bone healing. It likes to heal anything. It doesn't care what it is. It doesn't have to touch it anymore because we can give it to you in a capsule.
Huh?
It's a cream because it heals wounds, and you know a lot of people have like psoriasis or skin that's always inflamed or doing something. Very good for inflammation. So it can be a topical cream, it can be a capsule, it could be a tablet, it could be an injection.
Brain,
Intestine.
brain.
In a roundabout way, because if your gut is super inflamed and leaky, your brain does not get food. So if I heal your gut, it improves the brain, but it's not a direct molecule to the brain. I have plenty of those, but that's not one of them. But it's something that's very healing. I use that's like my number one favorite thing. I just want 10 minutes. Okay, sorry. Yeah, but that BPC 157 is one of the more affordable peptides and is one of my favorites. So peptides, so hormones, like if somebody took hormones, I would expect them to get a prescription and it would be less than $100. In the day when we prescribed human growth hormone, that was like a $400 plus monthly thing. The peptides are between that. They might be 100, 200, 300. Usually they're less than 400, but they're in the mid-range. So which is why I try conservative things first, because if your problems go away at $100, you don't want to spend 400. But if your problems don't, now you justify, doing something else. But BPC is like, $150 range, but for what it does, I mean, if it heals your whole, you can't get a gut, you can get new butt, you can get a lot of new things, but you can't get a new gut. If I take your gut out, it's just out, it's out.
So it's just one shot? Or is it,
BPC is a daily pill.
oh, a daily pill? For how long is it endeavor? Really?
I mean, people can stop sometimes after people feel better, like somebody has heartburn and they, they're being tortured by it, don't want to take their regular drugs. Maybe after 3 or 4 months they'll feel better, and then they can stop it for 2 months. It'll come back because you're still injuring yourself. You still don't naturally make that Wolverine molecule. So it's one of those. It's ongoing. It might not be daily ongoing, but you will regularly need to visit because that's aging. Maybe when you're 20, it might be a temporary thing, but if somebody's over 50, I expect it to be one of the ongoing things they'll do.
Okay.
Because I've even had people, take it for a while and they'll say, oh, my symptoms came back. I'm like, are you still refilling all this? They're like, I ran out of a couple. I'm like, one of them is BPC. They're like, yeah, I ran out of that. I'm like, your symptoms come back. Because it heals you. And now that, we have all these viruses running around destroying us quickly, we need things to heal us fast. We can't let our healers go. So, hair. So a lot of people have problems with their hair. Because I see a lot of people over 50 and no one says my hair is way thicker now than it was when I was younger. I got no takers on that, right? So we must have peptides that specifically help hair. I mean, we've got Rogaine, and that's great. This one is skin and hair. There's a lot of beauty cream. I mean, if you ever Google this, they're going to tell you it's the latest in wrinkles. It's clinically proven to help with wrinkles. Skin healing, wrinkles, and it stimulates hair growth, equal to Rogaine. Yeah.
Regrowth?
Regrowth.
Like for men?
It is the peptide. Yeah. Zinc thymine. There's it's a topical cream. GHKCU. Everybody wants to write that down. Yeah. GHKCU is a topical cream.
I said that recording.
Yeah.
She's gonna make a handout.
Yeah. She can make you one, and she's got the
Oh,
recording.
yeah,
Right,
handout would
right.
be really.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So there is another one called zinc thymulin. So remember I talked about the thymus gland before, immunity, and then zinc is just a vitamin that's really just for hair growth. So they put them together because some people lose their hair for immune reasons. Androgenic alopecia is kind of an autoimmune disease and everything. So this peptide I might reach for hair loss, immune function, both of them.
You know, when I had COVID, I had the hair loss afterwards.
Right, and there we go. So this is topical.
Oh, okay.
So it's not as, thymosin, which is the injection, is more if I'm trying to get your immune system rebooted. But this is like a more local effect on the autoimmunity that can go with hair. But this is another formula that I've used for hair. The thing about this, how you would use it, even if you didn't have androgenic alopecia, you know how your hair grows, rests, falls out. It's supposed to be equal, happen in 3 equal parts. But as you get older, it might fall out more and does not grow and rest as much. This increases the growth phase. So you want that. You want it to grow more than it rests and falls out. And this kind of changes that whole pattern. So it's a pattern changer. So I played with it just to make my hair grow. I mean, it grows, but not like, it's not down my feet. But it does grow. Okay, so memory, specific memory peptides. Save them for last so you remember. So C-Max and C-Link, they're very similar. A lot of people interchange them. They sound alike. But these are nasal sprays that help with brain memory. They also have some function with mood and anxiety. So when I have kids, I've had a few kids that have gone to college. They were on Adderall or whatever those other drugs, Ritalin for ADHD. But then they got military scholarships, so now they can't use those things in college. And they're like, what can I do for my memory because I can't focus? And then I give them this. C-Blank and C-Nex nasal sprays. Improves learning ability, enhances memory. So my older patients who just say, my mom has memory problems and I want to make sure my brain stays healthy, you don't have to have a memory problem for me to use this. I can use this to preserve your memory, to help you with your brain fog. I can help get you off Adderall. So these are nasal sprays that I often use if I'm specifically going for memory. Growth hormone can help you with memory, like what I already talked about, because they help with everything. But this is when you specifically say, I need memory, period. I don't care about that other stuff.
What are the side
I've not heard anybody call me back and say, I hated it for me. Now, some people might say, should I take more sprays because I feel a little effect, but I need more, but I haven't had anybody say that something bad. Nasal sprays, just in general, hormone itself, the peptide itself doesn't have a negative.
And you have to take that on a daily basis.
In long-term use.
Well, I say long-term use, but you could take it for a year or two and get your memory back and then take a break from it. But aging is a progressive problem and your memory will change again like it did before.
Does this help with anxiety? Or do everything for anxiety? That helps with anxiety too?
Most of the brain peptides also decrease your cortisol. Anything that helps your gut is going to help anxiety. If you're inflamed anywhere in your body and I give you something that lowers your inflammation, your mood gets a little bit better. So most of them have some beneficial effect on mood. This one's probably one of the more specific ones. Stroke, ulcers, TIA, memory. I think the C-Lank is the one, stress and anxiety. C-Lank is more specific for stress and anxiety. Yeah. But they both help because they're very similar molecules. They're almost twins. And they
Do you do them together or do you take them?
Two different ones.
Oh, they're two different ones.
I just put them together because they're pretty interchangeable. They were making them together and they just decided to make two different ones because they were slightly different. They both are immune boosting, they both help with mood, but their biggest thing I use is for memory and focus. And here is another one for brain health called Dehexa. This one specifically looked at for Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. So I don't use a ton of that because most of my patients are like on their way to a memory problem, so I use C-Link and C-Max more. But this one, if I had a more severe patient, I would. It does help with mood, and brain and focus. So there's several different ways. So this is like a summary of the skin ones, BPC and G, and some of them are going to appear in more than one category. Then you've got hair, the GHK and zinc thiamine, the brain, the DSIP, the Dehexa, because this one's a sleep one, this one was for severe memory, and this one was for maintenance of memory. Libido, the kisspeptin because it boosts peptide work, the PT141 also. Immune system, they all sort of help, but thymosin is the most direct. Weight, they all sort of help, but anti-obesity drug is the best. And then in general, the growth hormone releasers do general health, and the epitalon that helps with aging is sort of like, who doesn't want help with aging? So,
Mind if I take a picture?
go ahead. Yeah.